Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're watching this episode of Roll Call. Welcome to the show. So, this is becoming a pretty steady show now. So, just for those that are new to Roll Call is when the police officers get into the room and they get their directions from the sergeant. And I always tell people if you've ever seen the old Chicago TV show when he says, be careful out there. Well, that's what roll call is all about. So they get all the different information. This roll call is a little bit different. We're going to break down some of the cases that you guys have been following, that we've been following, and actually get some input from you guys also. So I know this is becoming pretty popular, so I'm excited about that in regards to because of the time. See, I'm new to this. We just started this in August. I'm looking for that sweet spot. And, it seems to be we can get this international audience in here too. So I'm glad to see everybody showing up into the chat. Thank you guys for coming today. I know it's early for some, but I'm going to be joined by, everyone knows, retired Detective Mike Alcazar. Mike, welcome to this edition of Roll Call. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
So we're going to break down a couple of cases for you today. We're going to talk about the, Riley Strain investigation. We're going to get into a little bit of that. There's, not very much movement, but we're going to discuss that. Of course, the Long Island body parts case, some other crazy stuff has happened. We're going to get into that. And we want to dive into this Chad Doerman case and about his confession getting tossed out. We're going to talk about all those different things today. Last night I was on Crime Nation. I was on for the Long Island serial killer, the documentary, and actually they did a pretty good job. I like the way. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, Mike, but they did a pretty good job with showing the maps and how the investigation flowed. And actually I was in it more than I thought. I told everybody don't blink because you might miss me. But I mean it's actually pretty interesting to see how that show came out.
I didn't get to check it out. Where is it on?
It's on the CW. It's getting posted today. So a lot of people have asked. They didn't get a chance to see it live last night. The CW has an app that I believe you can watch it for free. And also you could also check on YouTube. But it was just an interesting little thing. We're not going to get into the Long Island serial killer stuff, but just for those that were interested. So let's jump into this Riley Strain case. So there's been some different things that have come out. And I don't know if people recall, but Mike, when it was on about 2 weeks ago, a story had just broke and he had mentioned it. And it was about the first time that I had heard about it. So Mike was pretty much on top of this. Any of the new things that came out yesterday? I'm going to do some screen sharing. I want to show the map and everything like that in a second, Mike. So just let me know. Have you had any new thoughts about what's been going on in the investigation?
Remember when we were talking about how they should employ homicide investigators for missing persons cases? I was watching the press conference and I noticed that they kept stressing that it's not a criminal investigation yet, it's still a missing person. I guess they're doing that to maybe calm or assuage the fears of the family. But as you know, I think you and I would treat this like a crime already. I mean, he's been gone for over a week. I don't believe, I hope the parents are watching this. I don't believe it's a missing person case anymore. I mean, it possibly could he have fallen in the water and they're still looking for him in the river. But I was just thinking when they found his debit card, was it? I thought that was strange, that's missing. So to me, that kind of like signifies maybe some kind of wrongdoing occurred. So I don't know, that's just my thoughts. I mean, it's just odd that the kid is missing for over a week, and I don't know, what do you think?
Right. Well, I mean, it's like it's too early to tell, but we've talked about this is a prime example of a case to have a homicide detective coming in very early in the investigation, if not the initial stages. And the reason is many times these cases can turn out to be a homicide. We're not saying that this case is a homicide, not in any stretch of the imagination. We don't have that thing. But the point is bringing into bear that kind of knowledge that a detective who has handled homicide cases. And if you can make this a national strategy, then you don't have to worry about the family, jumping to that conclusion that, oh my God, they think he's dead, right? So if you just made it a blanket thing across the board, you can avoid what you were just saying, right? So if the family's watching that, they wouldn't get So like, oh my God, there's a homicide investigation going on. It would just be a standard procedure because, as you
Yeah.
know, Mike, as a detective, you know that you have skills to bear that the ordinary patrol cops who are handling this missing persons case, who are also trying to handle the radio, don't have the time to be able to do things. Can you just can you expand upon that?
Yeah, I agree. I also noticed when I watched the press conference that they have a cold case squad working on this case. So, and cold case, as you know, they handle homicide. So I guess they do have that experience in that unit already in Nashville. So they might not want to say that they're treating it like a crime, but I believe with their experience and from what I saw in the press conference that they are. So yeah, as far as like patrol officers are limited in experience, right? When they go to the scene and they treat it like the missing, they might not be looking for like key evidence for a potential crime scene, and we rely on detectives to do that. So if they treat it like you said, like a crime from the beginning, from the get-go, they might get crime scene, their version of crime scene. I don't know what they call crime scene over there. I hope it's called crime scene because we have two, right? We have crime scene and what's
Evidence collection.
evidence
Evidence
collection,
collection.
ECT teams, right? Our minor league. So I don't know if they did that from the get-go.
Minor league.
I would hope they did that so that and if they did, I would think if they did that, they would have probably found that debit card, right? So I think it's important to treat it, you know, we're not saying it's a homicide or anything, but
Right.
to treat it like a crime scene, just to collect as much evidence to establish a crime scene as big as possible, so that we can gather any evidence that we might need or use to find Riley.
Exactly. All right. And that's the thing, right? So we're not saying that this is a homicide investigation. We're just saying these are the kind of things that we're doing. And I'm trying to work with a couple of politicians, either locally or even at the national level. And I'm trying to float this idea. I need to get more information, but this case, unfortunately, has now presented itself as a reason to say, hey, listen, there were things that were missed, right? So all the video surveillance that they kind of weren't able to get in the first couple of days of it, and they ended up going back days later. I think
Yeah.
it would be an important aspect. I just want to take a quick shout out to Ashley, who just donated 5 memberships. Ashley, thank you very much. She's been a big supporter of this channel. I can't thank her enough. Thank you, Ashley. So the issue that comes down to is, you know, we need to get those, I guess, resources to bear. I think would be a good way to discuss that.
Yeah, and it's also depending on the municipality, right? How big their police department is. They might just not have the manpower to perhaps do these protocols that
Mhm.
we're suggesting. So they might have to employ outside agencies, like a state police or even the FBI to help them if they're small agencies. So that's something to keep in mind.
Well, absolutely, right. So yeah, this kind of mutual agreement kind of thing between the different agencies, and listen, I don't think you'd ever have any issues where you have these local police departments that have probably most of them probably have fewer than 25 sworn officers trying to cover 3 tours, right? They're trying to do all
Yeah.
these different things. So yeah, they're going to need the county help. They're going to need the state help. But
Yeah.
once again, this is where those mutual agreements and the chiefs getting together before an event happens, so that when it does happen, everyone knows what to do, right? So maybe start off with a tabletop exercise, and then take it into an exercise that actually has the personnel on the ground, because you and I know, right? The training is really important. Specifically, you start off with that tabletop, and then you get into like the real thing, and I think that would be an important first step.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Absolutely. It's going to require training and experience. So I think we're going to talk about that probably in the next case, where training is so important. And sometimes these small agencies are just lacking in it. So,
Right. I just brought up the screen with the map on it. Now, for those that watched the roll call on Monday, I had done pretty much on a breakdown of where I thought, like, if we were doing, I was doing it at the time, where I would be conducting the search. And the search was the last time. I mean, so we have him on video. We have him on. The police actually even talks to him. And Mike, you've seen all the videos, I'm assuming by now, right? All the videos with Riley in them. The first
Yeah,
couple, he's stumbling, right? He's stumbling. He fell. He was running. He crashed into the ground. But then the video where he is passing by the cop, he seems to have his head up, right? He's walking pretty good. He actually, he has a conversation, a quick one, of course, with the police, like, "Hey, how you doing, sir? How you doing?" And everything seemed to be like okay at the moment. It was kind of a weird kind of, you know, not a confrontation, but a kind of passing there, right?
interaction. Yeah, I think
Interaction. Thanks.
I think Riley was, intoxicated, but as most people, when they see law enforcement, they kind of like, straighten up a little bit, please don't arrest me, which would have been a great stop for the police officer if he saw and observed him to be, unsteady on his feet, but he did seem to be walking straight. But we know we can just fake that, I've done it myself, where I'm like, okay, no, I'm fine, but it just happened. I mean, yeah, parts of the video we see him running. I don't know why he was running. Maybe he was just running across the street, then he fell. And
Yeah.
then yeah, of course, we saw later on the body cam that he seemed to be fine. So, but that doesn't, to me, that
Yeah.
doesn't indicate that he was no longer intoxicated. Like I said, he just
Yeah. It's a great
went
point.
to, yeah,
Yeah, it's a great point. Yes, I just I want when I saw it, I watched the video. It's a very short clip, and over and over again, I watched it to look for any, see if I can tell any signs or what have you. But it's just so short. The interaction is like whatever 2 seconds max, I think. And this kid's just walking, and it just so happened that this cop had to be there investigating a break-in of a vehicle. So and it just goes to show you how much surveillance is actually out there, right? So if it's not in a building or a house, it could be on the police officer, it could be in the bank, it could be on a school bus, right? We now know these cameras are on the school bus, and it's amazing that the technology that has come along. Now, I put up the map, I blew it up to where the location was, where they said the last time they saw Riley and where they found the card, right? So they found the card right in the location where between these two bridges. And they said also, I'm just going to try to scoot it down a little bit. So they said here at the Davidson County Common Corrections Department here, there is no sign of him, right? There's cameras apparently everywhere on here, or you would think so, right? In the corrections department. So we know that the last time he was seen was within this area. And this is where also the homeless encampment is probably. And I had said this on Monday, right? If you're going to have a homeless encampment, you would probably find it underneath one of these bridges because you're looking for that shelter. And they actually spoke to a couple of people involved, that live in that camp who said they saw him. They said they saw some commotion, but nobody has said anything in regards to any nefarious activity.
yeah. I'm sure they already interviewed the people that reside in that area, and they might already have leads, and they're working on it. They're just not releasing it yet. So, also a point I wanted to make, because I know we have a lot of mothers out there watching and concerned about their kids. I wish Riley, and I know he's 22, but I know he was uncomfortable probably telling the cop, listen, I'm a little bit drunk. Can you help me out? But I think we should stress that, listen, the police aren't there to hurt you. If you're intoxicated and walking, you're not going to jail. I've driven people home that were intoxicated. So for our
Yeah.
moms and dads out there that are worried about their college kids, if they ever get in a situation like this, please tell them, don't hesitate. Tell the police officer you need help. We'll give you a ride to your hotel. It's not a big deal. I think people fear the police too much currently in this climate, and they're afraid to get help. But I think it's so important. We're there to help you. We're not always there to arrest you. We're there to bring you home, especially if you can't get home. So I think that's something that we should stress to our kids, to my kids. My kids are that age, they're partying in bars all the time. I tell them, listen, ask for police for help. Don't be afraid. They're there to help you.
Right. And listen, even if you got a ticket for public intoxication at that point, at least you're going to be in a safe spot where you're not, wandering around a city that you don't know about. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing, because the cops, well, I mean, I'm assuming because in New York, you couldn't give a summons to an intoxicated person. So you had to do something with them. You had to bring them somewhere or take them somewhere. And more than likely is if you came from the hotel. See, I didn't work in the part of the city where there were hotels. So there was kind of, I didn't work in Manhattan area. I was either in the Bronx or in Brooklyn North. And it's not really like there's a Marriott on the corner over there. But the issue that comes down to is you know, yeah, ask for help. And like I said, even if you take the hit and get a summons, who cares at this point? But I
And
had
you might
mentioned
not,
this on.
and you
Oh,
might, and
sorry.
you might not get the summons, right? It's discretionary. I feel like when
Yeah,
that cop asks him how you doing, the cop may have noticed, like, oh, maybe there's something, up with this kid, nothing bad, but he asked him, right? How you
right.
doing? So that was the opportunity. Hope, I wish Riley would have just said, listen, I need help, buddy. I'm a little bit out of sorts, and I'm walking around wandering. I can't remember where my hotel is. That cop would absolutely put him in his car and drive him home, drive him to the hotel, at
Yeah,
least
I
get him
think
to his
so.
friends.
I think so. Yeah, if there was a little engagement there, or maybe if the cop would have said to him, "Hey, everything okay?" or "Do you need any
Yeah.
help?" that
Yeah.
that could have been something to think about in regards to into that too. So you know, uh, the police have said now they've scaled back. I'm going to show you. I'm going to share my screen now again, and I want to show you. There's a new search and rescue team in. So the police have said now that they have scaled back this investigation in regards to the search, and the family has reached out. So the family held a press conference yesterday, and the ironic part that I find, and not really ironic, but they held the press conference right under those bridges, one of those bridges that we had just shown on the map recently. So that's where the bank card was found, and I think that's where this whole thing kind of goes off the path on Gay Street, and that's where it is. Now, I also saw some video. So this is the United Cajun Navy. They come out of Florida. They are a non-for-profit group. But this is the first time I had heard about them. But I'm going to go through some of these quick things with you guys because it's absolutely amazing what they do. So this is who they are. So they're a registered nonprofit organization, and they help with search and rescue. Now they generally deal with things such as natural disasters. However, they have a search and rescue team that has been called to the scene in Nashville now, and they have their own boats and everything else like that. So I guess they had to, muster up and get everybody to up in Nashville, and this is at the behest of the family now. So this isn't something. This isn't a group that just decided to say, "Hey, I'm going to try to get my name in the paper and try to do all this stuff." This was requested by the family members, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, take a look at some of the statistics that they put on their website. So they've had nearly 5,000 volunteers recruited for their stuff. They've almost 2 million pounds of supplies, and it's actually pretty amazing. And I think we should see more of organizations like this because, as you know, these smaller places need more of the help.
100%. And I saw in the news conference they were, giving advice. The law enforcement people were giving advice to volunteers, and it's invaluable that the help that the public can give in a case like this. Your viewers, and if they live in the area, would definitely be able to help. So I feel like maybe they should do some kind of like training for civilians if they're going to do this. I know they're giving advice. Maybe we should start a school, Joe, where we can give advice so they don't destroy evidence. They don't, disturb
Right.
crime scenes, what to look for. I think that's something we could tap into. That's like a market because there's so many people that want to help, especially for like a small agency that doesn't have enough police officers, but the public is out there that could absolutely help.
And you're going to need the public in some of these more rural areas, right? So, like for instance, New York City, we're kind of spoiled in that respect. We have a unit for everything, and not only do you have a unit, but you have 100 people assigned to it, and you got your own
Yeah.
armada of boats and all the other things that go along with it. So that's just something. But not every police department has this. Not every
Yeah.
jurisdiction has this capability. It's not, it's a financial strain, remember, it's just not about buying a boat. It's also about the upkeep. It's about all the different things that you have to do. This is an expense that goes on and on and on. And from a former boat owner, I can tell you, they always say the happiest days are when you buy it and when you sell it. So it's a really expensive endeavor getting involved in boats and stuff. But I'm sure Nashville, they have it. But you know what? This group is able to bring even more resources into this. And there's something else I want to talk about the um, the press conference with the family and the police department. I actually have a couple of notes that I took because, and I wanted to discuss these with you, Mike. The Nashville Police Department has stated in the press conference yesterday that they have gotten a tremendous amount of calls. But here's the kicker: the police, I guess he's the PIO, the public information officer, stated that they're not actionable, that they're getting theories being
Yes.
sent in and basically jamming up the system. Can you discuss that, Mike? So, from you were a
Yeah.
detective, you were investigating cases. Tell us about when you get those phone calls that really don't mean much into it, and how that kind of hampers the investigation.
Yeah. So in your previous unit, Crime Stoppers, I've worked with a couple of the detectives that work there. What the detective in this case is talking about, actionable leads, is like facts. We want facts. We understand that you want to give your theories of what may have happened. We're already doing that. We appreciate it. We appreciate your theories, but we need like something that is investigative, an investigative lead that we can work on, where you saw him, where there might be possible phone video, credible witnesses, right? And then we'll develop the theories ourselves. So what Joe's talking about is when you're making all these phone calls, there's only so many lines, and I'm sure in Nashville they're limited. They're not as probably big as New York City. And now you might be cutting somebody off that might be giving good evidence, and they're waiting to get on a telephone call with the detective. And we appreciate it. We like the theories, but we prefer leads, investigative leads.
Right. I just put on the ticker, I put the Nashville Police Department number. This is the number that the Nashville Police Department yesterday requested people to. So, I guess they're getting inundated with other phone calls from all over into the police department because there's different units. This is the number, the 615-862-8600. Right. As soon as you see that 8600, you can pretty much assume that it is a, like the operator, so to speak, kind of thing that they want to talk to. So, yeah, that was the first thing. Yeah. So jamming these up. Listen, the theories and stuff like that, that's for social media, right? Yeah, that's for, to discuss these things. But here's the other kicker. The family also stated in the press conference that, to be careful, that they're watching what's happening on social media. They're following the stories because, once again, they're looking for tips too. And some of the things that they saw, they said, were quite upsetting, so to speak. I'm not putting words in their mouth. This is kind of sum and substance what they said. And, I think sometimes people need to stop and think about that in regards to, for instance, I think the police, I don't know if it was the police or one of the family members or friends said something like, yeah, they don't want to read about, oh, there's a serial killer running around, doing all this stuff. So, just as people share, just be mindful that there are family members that are probably following the conversations online, looking for help or looking for tips too. And there's a difference between a theory and a tip, right? The tip is basically something that can be either proven or disproven. A theory involves a whole investigation, and that's something that the police have already created their theories. And there's only two theories as far as I'm concerned, right? The theory is one, he accidentally fell in the water and drowned, and the other theory is he became a victim of a crime. That's it.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
no scenario in here that I don't think you can come up with another scenario.
I was watching a guy, a private investigator, who was a little bit of a goofball, and he had a theory, and it's plausible that maybe Riley's doesn't want to be found, that he's hiding out somewhere, and that's why he discarded his debit card. When we've seen that, I think a kid in Europe did that. He didn't want to be found. That would be great if that is the case. That he just doesn't want to be found. I don't, from what I've seen and read about Riley, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that at all. I don't think so. From all intents and purposes, this kid was in there with his frat brothers, having a good time. He's everything that the family and friends have said about this kid. He seems like a really nice kid, and is caught national attention, and it's caught national attention for a specific reason. For those parents out there that have children that are, of this age, that are either going to school, either going to a university or college locally or away, this is what keeps them up at night, right? So moms will always be moms, and this is the kind of stuff that keeps them up at night. And I think that's why it has garnered national attention now.
Yeah, 100%. I worry about that all the time. And this happened here in the United States. Like my daughter just recently went to Mexico. I was like, oh my God, I wish I could Liam Neeson her and just travel there and watch her from a distance. But, our kids are becoming adults, but we can only, guide them so much and tell them to stay with their friends. I think that's the most important thing. Even at 22, stay with your friends. And I'm going to criticize the friends. I don't believe that they were not permitted to leave the bar. In my opinion, I believe they were just having a good time, and they just hoped Riley would get home safely. But I think it was a little bit selfish that they didn't follow their friend home, or at least one of them. I know, and then that's another thing, right? He's a male, so they probably thought, oh, he'll be fine. I'm sure they would have done it for a female colleague, but males, especially when you're heavily intoxicated, you got to escort him home. And again, that's just my advice for everybody else there, with children and their friends. And this should be a lesson for everybody. And hopefully this resolves in a good way. It's not looking good, but hopefully it does.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I read another article last night that there was one of his friends went out with him as he was being escorted out and went down the stairs and then turned around, and as he was walking away, it went back into the bar. So the fact that nobody was allowed to leave, I don't know. That's the first time I'm hearing that part, but is it's a sad situation. And I started off the show on Monday saying just that, and it's good. I'm hearing it echoed now throughout. So I don't know. I'm not going to take credit that people are saying it, because this is not an independent thought by any stretch of the imagination. But you never leave anybody behind, right? Either leaving the bar or staying at the bar. You never leave anybody behind. And I brought up, I'm sure you remember, Mike, the Amet Sanguian case.
Yeah.
Where she was left at the bar, right? I mean, and that was a New York City case, and she was a John Jay student while we were teaching there. So it is something that I can't say this enough, right? So I know people say, well, Joe, you said this on Monday. Why do you have to say it again? Because it's really that important. You leave nobody behind. You need to talk to your kids and say, if you go out with a bar, if someone gets escorted out or someone wants to stay, you either all stay or you all go home. Get them home and then go out again. Once they're secured and safe, go out again at that point. So it's just something that you're. And I found the cold case sergeant's name is Sergeant Robert Nielsen of the cold case and missing persons unit. So it's a dual unit. So that's why they're working at the scene. So I don't think they're working this as a cold case. And because I think someone put in the chat, it's cold. No, it's not a cold case because it's a missing persons unit also. Which, after this case, they might want to consider having a separate unit, because dual units in a small department, I get it. They don't have enough personnel, but being the former commanding officer of the Bronx Cold Case Squad, I can tell you, you can't do any other jobs. It's just that missing persons is a whole other, lack of a better adjective, animal when it comes to investigations. And it just needs to, have its own dedicated experts.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not the case in Nashville, where they have a lot of missing persons. That's why probably they don't have the manpower, and maybe they don't have the need for it until, of course, this case. So hopefully that's the case.
All righty. So is there anything else about this Riley Strain case that I didn't bring up this morning, Mike, that you wanted to get out there?
No, you mentioned it, but I think they did say they're going to go back to the river, and hopefully, again, with the volunteers, that they can help if he's in the river to recover any kind of information. So,
yeah, I mean, I think they need to be looking much further downstream, right? I mean, there's a current. I looked it up. I think it might have been, if I remember correctly, 4 nautical, not in the miles, 4 knots. Excuse me, 4 knots, which is that's, if you calculate that into miles per hour, the river is traveling at over 4.5 miles per hour.
Wow.
And that's pretty strong. I mean, look, the East River and the Hudson River is even worse. That's why we know when people get into there, boy, but here's the other thing. When the water is cold, and this is, I don't know if many people realize it, but when the water is cold, the body tends to sink. And usually when the weather warms up, that's when, so now this is the season, and we used to say this all the time. This is the season where bodies come floating back up into the East River and with the tides and everything else, because the water warms up. So and yes, I think it's Amy said could get snagged on something too. Yes, it's it's a terrible situation for this family. I can't imagine what they're going through. But there's always that glimmer of hope, and we never want to dash it, right? We never want to dash the hope. And then say, well, all is lost. I don't like doing that. And until we hear exactly from the authorities, we also want to avoid on the speculation, because remember, guys, the families could be watching, and it's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to switch up until, unfortunately, this case is even more horrible than the one we were just talking about. This case is about Chad Doerman. Now, Chad Doerman, he's a father that is allegedly, and we have to use the word allegedly, right? Because he's in trial now for killing his 3 sons. And I'm going to show you the picture of these kids because it's just, I'm not going to show you the video of him getting arrested because they actually have the bodies are actually in the video and they bug it up. But here are these kids, and this is from the funeral home that had that did the funerals for these kids and the wakes. So you had Clayton, Hunter, and Chase. They were these kids were so young. So here they are, 4 years old, 3 years old, and 7 years old. And allegedly, the father executed them with a .22 rifle. And when the police, if you've seen the video, he's sitting on a stoop, and the police come up to him, and it's hard to see because hard to hear. You hear the dogs barking. You have 2 cops shouting commands. But allegedly, somewhere, he's on video saying, "I did it. Take me to jail." I listened to that video, Mike, 20 times. I don't hear it. And I'm a little concerned because his confessions just got thrown out.
Yeah, I didn't hear that either. I watched the video. I didn't hear that. Now, he could have said it in the car post arrest. That's possible. So
yes, well, here's the thing, right? So we have body cams. So this is all the different things. But I want to get into a little bit about basic Miranda. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out how to share Word documents on this. I'm learning how to share internet stuff, but Word documents, because I actually had my book. All right, so I've written. This is not a shameless plug, but I wrote a criminal investigation book, and I cover the Miranda thing, and I break it down for everybody. So the easiest way to think about Miranda is a math formula, and that is custody plus interrogation equals Miranda. That's it. If you have somebody in custody, they're under arrest, and you ask them questions regarding what happened, it's covered under Miranda. So the Detective Ross, on the stand, admitted that he didn't read him the whole card.
I saw his testimony. That guy needs training. It was so embarrassing to watch him testify. I heard him say, "Oh, I read him the important parts." I'm like, I give him credit. He's not lying on the stand, but he's not making himself look like a professional investigator.
Well, and listen, I can understand people can make mistakes and you get nervous. You're in court. I've testified at trials. It's nerve-wracking, right? And yes, of course, the more you do it, the better you get at it. But I don't have that much of a vast experience in regards to that. But it's not about exactly. But what he said next, right? He said, "I'm not a robot." Like I didn't read it because I'm not a robot. And that's the one that's the comment that I was giving him the benefit of the doubt and say, "Listen, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody knows everything. I don't know everything. And I'm not pretending that I know everything. I don't, right? I mean, that's. I know sometimes people tell you, "Oh, well, what do you know?" Whatever. Okay, fine. I get it, right? So it's just something to to think about in regards to what transpired here. I mean, like,
Yeah,
Mary Say from Australia just became a member, right? So this is we're bringing in a whole international audience here, Mike. So it's actually kind of interesting. But
that's awesome.
Thanks, Mary. So I'm frustrated at this because in 2024, 2023, this case happened in 2023, but we're like, how are we still having these Miranda issues, right? You have a card, read it.
Yeah. Again, I attribute it to lack of training. We in the NYPD, we had the whole interview interrogation training, right? And we recently had not recently, several years ago, we had the cameras installed. So we had to go through this project of retraining everybody. And sadly, I don't think this agency had proper training because, I mean, credit to the police officers, the patrol officers that made this apprehension. Great job, right? You got witnesses, you got evidence, you got everything. And now the most important part, you have the detective, and all you have to do is read the card, and you're on video. So lack of training. I think the detective, and believe me, I'm the last person to Monday morning quarterback a detective, but he totally dropped the ball. This is such an important case, a homicide. And all you have to do is read the card, and then he was playing. And I know you're going to bring it up. He was playing also when the guy, when Doerman requested for a lawyer. Not by no means, I'm not protecting Doerman, but he indicated that he wanted a lawyer, and this guy's pretending like who's Laura? It was just silly what he was doing. It was just lack of training and I don't know, lack of experience.
Yes. I'm going to answer that in a second. I just wanted to reach out to Steel Guitar. Thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate that. Mike, I listen, I get a lot of hate sometimes when I say, that the cops did, a bad job. And I don't play the game where because I was a cop that the cops are always right. Right? That's not the case. You and I actually wrote the entire interview interrogation stuff, including for the video. We wrote it for the police department. I mean, and we also did it, right? I mean, this is like, one thing about New York City cops, even if you're a patrol officer, the interview skills that you have are absolutely tremendous because you don't talk to one person a day. You could talk to 100 persons a day, right? Or, thousands in a week or a month. I mean, the amount of skills that you acquire over a time period, but it's also about learning about the actual rules and regulations and becoming a student of it because it's an important aspect to make sure you have a case where this guy is charged with killing his young babies, right? He also shot his wife, who survived, luckily, and he tried to shoot his stepdaughter, who fortunately was able to run away to the local fire department. And I'll listen, the fire department does a great job, right? Keeping this kid safe, but they're not going to be able to protect themselves or even her if this guy went after him with a rifle. I mean, this was a serious, terrible situation, and it's when you hear little things like this. Now, I don't think this is going to affect the outcome of the case because not at all. There's plenty of evidence. You have two eyewitnesses. You have the wife and the daughter. So, guys, this is not lost. We're just talking about this because I never want to see this happen again in any court. Because what happens, Mike, if this was the sole thing for this case?
Yeah, if you were relying solely on a confession, it would be thrown out 100%. It would be thrown out just like in this case, and then it might not be if it's not prosecutable. So,
right. So the fact that we're going to say here like you are Monday morning quarterback. Well, technically we are, but we want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So I want the detectives out there. I don't care if you're in a department with 5 people, 500 or 5,000. If you're a detective, you need to make sure you know when Miranda has to be read, how it kicks in, when they ask for a lawyer. See, New York City, we had like some really severe rules in regards to it. If they just said, I want a lawyer, right? But listen, that's the magic phrase. Everything stops. It's as simple as that. But even New York City, we went through above and beyond what even the Supreme Court says was allowable. But apparently, somewhere along the line, there are some spontaneous utterances he makes. And Mike, could you explain to the audience what a spontaneous utterance is, even if you said, I want a lawyer?
Yeah. So spontaneous utterance, you're not asking any questions. He just blurts it out. You're not questioning him. He might not even be in custody, for an example. He might not even be in custody, and he just says, I don't know, I did it, I can't, whatever it is. That's a spontaneous utterance. You haven't had the opportunity to read Miranda. You might just be asking for like pedigree information. I'm not always talking about like a homicide case. It's just something that someone blurts out. Because some people, during that heat of the investigation of the crime or the police response, and everybody, human beings are all, guilty of this. We always just say something because we feel like we can justify what we did or something, and we rely on spontaneous utterances because it's totally admissible. So it's a big part of the investigation.
Right. So if you're just joining us now, we're up to 180 people watching us live. I'm with retired NYPD Detective Mike Alcazar, and we're talking about the Chad Doerman confession getting thrown out. So if you're just joining us now, thank you. Just please remember to subscribe and hit that like button. I really appreciate that. But I always like when I do when I do these things, I always like to make it somewhat of a teaching moment too. So for those that are asking or where this comes from, if you want to look up a Supreme Court case on how the Miranda card could be read, you look up Duckworth, which is one word, versus Egan. And Duckworth versus Egan basically says that the police can't, this is from a 1989 case, the police can change the Miranda. They can make it, so they could simplify it, but they have to write down exactly what they said. And now, under video surveillance, this is great because it's all covered under that. So that's one of the cases. And you know what? That might be a future quiz question, right? So I know for those of you guys that are doing the quizzes, it's really important. But here, if you're looking for a spontaneous utterance, where the Supreme Court decision on that, it was a Rhode Island case. It was Rhode Island versus Innis in 1980. If you want to look up that case and see, Jay just put it up there. Thank you for the Duckworth. And Jay, if you can, or somebody, if you could find the Rhode Island versus Innis, and that's I believe the Innis was, I think it was with an E. I don't. I'm trying to see if. Hang on a second. No, it's Innis with an I. And the spontaneous utterance, right? There is a video where they are booking him. And that could have been where he might have said one of these statements, allegedly. So I'm hoping that video comes out to play in the trial and to do that. Because, listen, spontaneous utterances doesn't matter. If he says, I want a lawyer, I'm not talking to you, and then 2 minutes later says, I did it. Okay, listen, sorry. As long as the police weren't asking a question in regards to the case, right? They can ask for pedigree information. All that stuff doesn't count. So, people have to remember that. But you know what, Mike? This is something really important because it protects not only the criminal justice system, but it protects us as United States citizens, right? You don't want to see guilty people walk free because somebody made a mistake. And I don't think that it is something that is, like I said, I don't think it's going to affect the case at all. We got plenty of witnesses, plenty of evidence. I mean, when they pull up, the cops pull up, you can see the rifle sitting right next to them. And I'm not going to show that video because, like I said, there's kids in the video. If you want to watch it, go on your own and do it. I'm not gonna share that on here because I don't think it's necessary, and plus, I don't think some people are ready for that. But I don't know. Final thoughts on this, Mike?
I just want to add that by no means we didn't get on the job and we were expert interrogators. We have the luxury of having a large department and large training. And I remember when we were doing the interview interrogation pilot project, we had a lawyer assigned to the NYPD that would review the interrogations, and he would make it a training point all the time. So, we would get memos all the time. Don't do this, don't do that. He'll take like a particular interrogation and say, okay, he did this wrong. So it's a lot of training, folks. It's not like we're just like brilliant at it. Believe me, we've made our mistakes. We are a large agency and we've received a lot of training. And that's why I think we're better at it. So it's not like, we were born to do it. It's just a lot of training. And I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a sergeant in the detective squad, right, I was in awe about some of the skills that these detectives had in the interrogation room. My God, I mean, you'd be able to, just sit there. It was like some of these guys and girls would be able to put on a show, so to speak, about how things should be done, right? How to ask the right questions, when to ask the right questions, and be able to. And I used to call it the curveball, right? Throw that curveball when they were ready for that fastball coming right down the plate. And then all of a sudden, the guy just like would freeze and didn't know how to answer it. There was some of these detectives were masters at it, and they would put me into awe about how they would do these, especially in these murder cases. I mean, it's incredible.
I'm thinking also like this detective in this case, he probably thought if he read the Miranda word for word, he probably thought he wasn't getting cooperation. And a lot of detectives, I want to share that with our audience, that a lot of detectives feel that, like if they read the Miranda, they're probably not going to get a confession. But oddly enough, in the thousands of interviews and interrogations I've done, I've read the Miranda and people want to talk. They want to They waive their Miranda and they want to talk. It's surprising how many. Think about Alec Baldwin. They read his Miranda and he just started blurting out all kinds of things. People love to talk, so I don't think that's going to be a hindrance. So do the Miranda, read it right, and then do the interrogation.
Right, and I think the percentage that people after they get read Miranda still talk to the police is like way up there. I don't know for sure, but it's got to be one of the researchers. I thought it was between like 75 and 90%.
Yeah.
that people still end up talking. So yes, don't ever be afraid to read the Miranda correctly, or like I said, look up that Duckworth case, and you can change the Miranda specifically to how. So if somebody has a lower educational level, you can put things in like, okay, listen, this says you have the right to counsel, right? So that means you have a lawyer or so, and they
100%.
can expand upon it.
Yeah.
But just they have to make sure that they, somehow it's captured of the different words that they use, because they're going to have to testify and prove it. And it's, to me, Mike, when I see this happen, I also think that people think they're smarter than the cops, or they need to be. If I don't talk, it makes me look guilty, right? So it's kind of like this catch-22 for them. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. It becomes like they call a teacher student, I believe, right? Where you want the perp to educate you. And, we all are actors in the interrogation room. We're going to be fatherly. We're going to be student-like. We're going to play dumb, like explain to me what happened. And we play on their emotions, and it works. Luckily, most bad guys are stupid, and we rely on that. So.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, and some of these things, like for this instance, right, such a heinous crime. Dot your I's, cross your T's. This is for every case, but specifically when you're dealing with a case like this at this level, there's no way this case is not going to trial. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? There are hundreds of cases, and you could tell us from your experience, Mike, right, that this case is never going to trial. But that doesn't mean you don't do the basics.
Yeah. Again, it all goes back to training. So. Oh, I want to add too. You said the formula custody, because I always talk about it with my students, right? Custody plus questioning equals interrogation. I want to clarify, like custody is like not necessarily arrest, right? If you feel like you can't leave, like something bad's going to happen, that's custody. And I always explain that to my students. So, make sure they read you the Miranda, not to protect the bad guys, but unfortunately, a lot of us might face a situation and you feel, just like me and Joe are talking about right now, that you can explain things away. If they're reading your Miranda, probably nothing good is going to happen with that. So, lawyer up and be careful.
Right. And you know what? You could tell everybody 1,000 times, don't talk to the cops, or don't do this, or don't do that. They still will. So it doesn't really matter. People say, well, Joe, why would you say such a thing? It won't matter. They'll still talk. Like I said, 75 to 90%. Like I said, I'm going to look it up when we get off the air and look it up. But the number is incredible. It's absolutely incredible that even after reading Miranda, people still talk. And it's just something as simple as that.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts, Mike, on this Chad Doerman? I'm just going to preface that with, I don't think any of this matters. He's still looking at the death penalty, and it's as simple as that. And, Godspeed, so to speak.
Yeah, luckily, I don't think we need the interrogation. Again, sadly, there's enough evidence there, and they'll prosecute this guy.
Exactly. So, yeah, KJ says 2 tests are coming. Yep, there's going to be lots of quiz questions for sure out of that one. There's some great questions there. Cokesborough, thank you. Says, thank you both for your service and continued service through your wisdom you impart to us now. Cokesborough from Australia, thank you very much for that. Super. That's one thing about this show, Mike, one thing about Roll Call and the timing, we're bringing in this international audience. And, listen, I have so many people to thank. We're going to talk. We have a couple more things to go through, but I just want to take this opportunity.
I got to correct you. I think her name is Cakes Boo.
Okay, I can't see anymore. Cakes Boo. I'm sorry, Cakes Boo. Yeah, I need to get reading glasses. I have the screen too far away. I'm trying to, and listen, so Cakes Boo, thank you very much. Sorry about that. So, I might as well take these off because I can't see with them anyway. But,
Jay said Cakesborough.
That's my Brooklynese coming out on me. I can blame that. But, listen, so many people have been unbelievable to me as we got this thing going, right? Jay's in the room now. He helped get me started. Gizela, a true crime grizzly. All these guys and girls have great shows that are on after me. Make sure you check them out. They do different cases. They do different things. And at the very least, you can watch one live and then watch the other on a replay. So both of them have been fantastic. The Grizzlies, I know, are in this room, have been like huge supporters, like unbelievable. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Jay and Gizela and the Grizzlies and everybody else, and J-Bo Nation. That's what they call Jay's followers. So I think
I think we could do
that's
I think we could do a whole show on Miranda warnings. I think that would be an interesting show. There's so much, so much to it.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea. We could get ourselves a lawyer on here with us too. Would be great.
Yeah.
Viv, thank you very much for that donation. One of my favorite dynamic duos, Mike and Joe. Thank you for all you do to educate us. Yeah, we need to get a defense attorney on with us, Mike, and we can do that because, like I said, they can talk about the other angles of different things in regards to the Miranda too. So I think that would actually be a fun show. I'll plan that out in the future.
You just gave me an idea. I bet you he would do it. One of our homicide defense attorney speakers, Larry.
Okay.
Do you remember Larry Bronstein? He might do it.
Okay, good. We'll reach out to him when we're offline, and we'll discuss that. I think it'll be a fun show, and like I said, make things educational in that respect too. So let's just switch gears. It's not funny, but it's actually getting to be quite comical, and that's the Long Island body parts case. So what I mean by comical, not that the fact that these two poor individuals were dismembered, but it's just the way how the criminal justice system has responded to this in regards to this. So you have four people. We don't know exactly what transpired between the police department and the district attorney, right? We won't know that. But usually on homicide investigations, you have a writing DA that you're dealing with the stuff that's directing you. Is that the same in Suffolk County? I don't know. I never worked in Suffolk County, so I'm not going to even cast any judgments on this. But anyway, they basically got him for unlawful disposing of a body or some similar charges like that in New York State. And because of bail reform, they were just allowed to walk out. Lo and behold, one of the people who are out on bail for this, I don't know if she was on ankle monitoring or not, gets rearrested for shoplifting.
Bad guys gotta do bad guy stuff. I mean, this is what they do, And like I said, they're not the smartest people, Yeah. Why not? I get. Maybe that emboldened her too, right? They released her, they investigated her for chopping up body parts. What's a couple of shoplifting charges? What's the big deal? And sadly, I think that's what's happening with the criminal population. They just yeah.
If I had hair like you, Mike, this is where I would be pulling it out, right? So lack of a better adjective, it's become a bit of a joke, right? I mean, like I said, there's no deterrence, there's no fear, there's no nothing, and it's crazy. It's just something to think about and like saying, what are we doing here? Now, this case seems to be like unraveling, right? So they were in court this week, and one of them was in court for a hearing for this, for the body parts case, and the other one was in court about her shoplifting charges. And it's I don't know, Mike, where this is headed. Do you have any crystal ball to tell us where this thing is going?
I don't know. I think. Who's your viewer, the detective? I think he might be on it. What's
Scott? Scott?
Yeah, it might have been.
I don't know if Scott's in the room.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but it might have been an OD case, and yeah, they panicked and chopped up the body because it doesn't make sense that they didn't charge him with the homicide. So, I don't know.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? How much, what was the rush of, if that's the case, right? And we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Don't be like, oh, Joe, you think you know everything. No, I don't, right? What I'm trying to say is, as a supervisor in a detective squad, when you were dealing with these things, you were dictated by the district attorney on your steps. Simple as that. And when you have somebody that, listen, this couldn't have been an accident, right? So you go through all your five manners of death, right? Natural, accident, suicide, homicide. It's not natural. It's not accidental. It's not suicide. So it's either undetermined or homicide. The fact that these people were cut up, you're looking at homicide.
Mm-hmm.
Build your case for that, not something like basically some of these things, some of these charges are just above a level of a misdemeanor, right? Or it's like a traffic summons, for crying out loud. I don't know what happened here.
Insanity. And again, the criminal justice system's like being portrayed as a joke. You chop the bodies and you release, with no bail. It just proves our point that, they're going to do bad things. Luckily, it was just shoplifting, right? One day, I hate to predict things. We're going to release somebody and they're going to commit a homicide. And it's because they were out, on their own recognizance. So.
And I think that's already happened. If it didn't happen in New York, it happened, I'm sure, in Chicago or somewhere else. At this point, I don't understand exactly what we're doing. Listen, elections have consequences. And if you don't like what's going on, there's only one way to change it, because we're not going to change it on a YouTube stream. That's for sure. And, that kind of thing. We're now, Mike, over 200 people watching us live here. If you're just joining us in the last few minutes of the stream, we have retired Detective Mike Alcazar with us, and we were just going through some of the latest on the Long Island body parts case. We covered, if you missed earlier, you could go back and watch the replay crew, which I always say they're awesome too, and that's the kind of thing. So Cleveland Rocks just said, I love having a cup of Joe with Joe and company. Yeah, you know what, Mike, we need to get a coffee sponsor in the morning for the morning show, right? Yeah, I got mine here right here too. We need to get a coffee sponsor, and so we'll work on that, right? So we'll get a coffee sponsor. Maybe somebody in the audience knows somebody who wants to do a sponsorship for coffee. I'll be glad to do that. Anyway, someone had asked me too in the chat if I had a PayPal thing for donation. I do. I could share that, or just contact me either at my email and or through the website, whatever. And if you'd like to do that, that's great too. I've been kind of reluctant to put out all these different things because that's not like my main goal, but I appreciate that kind of stuff. But this is starting to grow, and it's starting to become. It's exciting. It's fun, but there's a lot of work involved in this. There is, people had told me that. Jay told me there's a lot of work involved in this, and it is. And Gisela helped me with those quizzes, right? The quiz, I do a quiz 6 days a week, and they get a poll on Sunday. And she's the one that actually told me, she says, Joe, you could do this where you could put because I was doing so much work with it. She's like, oh, you could put the answer, and then there's a way to put the answer in a link, and people could just read it instead of how you have to answer. So, these are the kind of things that, like I said, total strangers save you hours of time today. And I do respond to 99% of the comments. So you leave a comment that's, a good comment and respect. If you say anything like totally, like really bad stuff, I'm not responding to those. But I respond to every comment that people make on the quizzes, on the streams, you name it, I do it. And that's my interaction. I'm trying to keeping everything here on YouTube too, because trying to go outside of YouTube and do the thing. I'm lucky I'm doing this. I'm sharing screens. I'm happy. That's basically. I'm sharing screens. So listen, this 55-year-old is excited that he's sharing screens. So it's just something to think about. So Mike, any prediction? You want to make a crystal ball prediction on this Long Island body parts case?
I think I'm going to go with Scott's theory that it was an accidental death, and then they panicked because they're stupid and hacked up the body because they didn't want attention, which they got anyway.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely on the table. Wow. Say no to globalism. Roll call mug merch. Okay. That would, oh my God, creating a store and this and that. But say no to globalism has been a big supporter of me. So all I could say no. I will work on that.
Maybe we need a Joe Giacalone mug so everyone can drink it with us.
Or at least one, maybe with a true crime with the Sarge on it, right? With the logo on it. Maybe like up in the top left corner, we can get that on there and stuff. But maybe with the tag phrase like I'm one comment away from being canceled.
Isn't that the
You know,
truth?
which is always the case with me, especially. And Mike, you know me now for over 20 years. You know that I don't pull punches. I will say exactly what comes to my mind. People don't believe me when I say that, but I think Mike can confirm that.
I can absolutely confirm that. This is actually Joe filtered. Meet Joe in person. I don't know. I know channels do like a outtakes or private combo. Do you have that or for
Well,
subscribers?
everything I've been doing now is been live mostly. I've been doing some other videos. I do this now. Where's the crime scene for the members, the channel members, and they get there's a new one coming out April 1st. The channel members where I show them a video or a picture of a crime scene, and they have to do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, eventually, the real me will pop up. It pops up on this live stream every now and then.
I
Somebody
think
on the comments said that I wasn't expressing outrage, and I said I don't do outrage. Mike, have you ever heard me yell and scream anytime I was doing it? No,
never.
I disgust. That's a whole other thing. You know, I will definitely tell people I'm disgusted with them or something, and I don't pull any punches with that. But that's something. And there might be somebody watching right now who knows exactly what we're talking about. But the issue that comes down to is we try to keep it clean, we try to keep it good, we try to keep it educational,
I
and that's
have
all.
seen
And
you smack around people with your wit, and that's probably worse. I'd probably take the yelling.
yeah, yeah, sarcasm for me is definitely a superpower.
It's a
So that's
superpower. I was just gonna say that.
yeah, that's something. But only the very few get that wrath. But Mike, listen, we're over an hour already, 210 people. I want to thank everybody for showing up. And I think, Mike, I'm on to something with this roll call. I think this is the third time in a row now, over 200 plus people watching, international audience. So I think we're going to see more of this. And, guys, if this thing keeps on going. So listen, you got some big shows coming up right after this. You got The Shaming of Jay, if you're not following him. And, of course, Gizela, Grizzly True Crime. If you're not following her, you should be. Different times. I don't know the exact times of what their shows they're covering today, but make sure you guys follow them and make sure that you are watching their content too. They're awesome. And a roll call mug has to happen. You know what? All right. Say no to globalism. All right. I'm going to do this. We're going to figure out a mug. Mike, you and I will talk offline and see what you got. Steel guitar. Thanks you, Mike, for coming on. There it is. Jay's at 10. Okay, great. Thanks, CH.
Thank you, guys.
There it is. Steel guitar. Thank you, Mike. So, yes, thank you. So, Mike, we'll talk in a little while. Thank you very much for coming on. For those of you, enjoy the rest of your day, and maybe we'll see you on Friday morning. Look for the live on the upcoming live streams. Mike, have a great day. Thank you. Hang on one second, buddy.